Thank you everyone for joining us today and making time in your very busy schedules to hear a little bit about what we've been doing this year in the Breeding Resources Initiative. Let me jump to the outline slide here. My name is Alwee and I am the initiative lead. And today we will be giving a very brief introduction into what the Breeding Resources Initiative is about, who are the work package leads, what we've been doing so far this year. And also we'll be talking a bit about how the Breeding Resources Initiative will be transitioning into Integrated Breeding and Research Services, which is the department in genetic innovations that will house our activities. We'll also talk a bit about our 2023 goals and finally how we can work together and support you in your breeding activities. So first off, let me invite Sonja, and where she'll be giving us a bit of an overview about genetic innovations and 1CG. Thank you, Sonja.
Hi, thanks Yonghua, and thanks Sharifah and Adam, and hello to everybody. Great to see so many people on today's call. Adam has put together a really nice slide deck that I'll talk to briefly, just to put breeding resources into the context of the overall genetic innovation strategy. So as you all know, if we move on to the next slide, thanks Adam, we are undergoing a 1CGIAR transformation at the moment. And this has been 10 years in the making, with thought leaders across CGIAR, including many of the people on the call, working together with some of our most helpful and influential funders and our most helpful and influential partners to think through essentially how we can do the entirety of genetic innovation in CGIAR. So that's everything from our gene banks through to the discovery and pre-breeding, the plant breeding, and then going outwards into seed systems and scaling. How we can bring all of that together into a single global operation where we're running that end-to-end delivery with a global footprint. So this has been here for some time. I'd say that genetic innovation, with thanks to everybody on the call again, is really the leader for CGIAR in terms of how we get to a joined up strategy with people working in different fields of expertise, whether it's breeding, data, social sciences, all working together, and also across our different centres, different crops and different regions. So that's where we're going. And of course, breeding resources is a key part of this. Next slide, please. So you will have seen the new strategy document that was put together through a highly participatory process. And I think the key thing is it delivers across 5 impact areas that talk to the Sustainable Development Goals. So again, I think for those of us working in genetic innovation, it's a challenge to become more multi-dimensional, multi-benefit in the kinds of impacts we're trying to achieve. Next slide, please. So we started off in genetic innovation with mapping out 6 interrelated initiatives. As Yonghua has said, the initiatives came first. These are vehicles for work. They are areas of activity and results that we'll work on collectively. But over time, we hope to structure ourselves into a more operational an operational structure that makes sense to us. I'll talk through a bit of how we move also from the initiatives into the op structure. So this slide, it's obviously oversimplified in terms of the relationships across the initiatives, but I think it gives the basic message that we're trying to co-deliver all of our work in a very coordinated way from the starting point of very strong market intelligence, understanding what the demand is in different market segments, in different geographies of the world, amongst different ultimate beneficiary groups, and then follow through all the way by then developing appropriate product profiles that breeders breed to, and then we deliver this work out through accelerated breeding complemented by our genome editing, and then out into the seed systems. And critically, breeding resources offers services across that full package of activities. So it'll be servicing market intelligence and the gene banks, as well as the breeding work and as well as seed equal. And the other critical message from this oversimplified slide is that breeding resources doesn't work alone. In fact, none of our work happens alone. It's always through NARES CGIAR networks. So we're all understanding now that we don't deliver work alone, and that our unit of delivery is in fact these partnerships, very strong partnerships with NARES. And with many of the kinds of services that we will be offering, creating, or otherwise sourcing from external providers will be done in partnership with these NARES as well. So can you go to the next slide, please? Thanks, Andre. So now we turn next to an organizational or operational structure. So the initiatives came first, and so for many of us that has created some confusion in our minds as to whether the initiatives are vehicles or projects or whether they are the operational structure. So the answer is they're not. They are very large projects. The initiatives are very important for two reasons. One is that they carry the bulk of the funding for CGIAR work. So these are our main vehicles for delivery in that sense. The other part is they carry this philosophy of the joined up approach. So the sets of choices made in the initiatives about, for example, how we do a project profile, a product profile appropriately, or a set of standards around the gene banks, or a choice around what kind of data systems we use. That's all carried within the initiatives. So we will be asking large window 3 projects and other areas of activity in genetic innovation to align as much as they possibly can to the initiatives. And in that way, we collectively shape a whole body. We will then be moving to this operational structure. It's just getting going now. In September, new senior directors were appointed across each of these 4 new GI departments. So the first department, Gene Banks, is going to be led by Charlotte Lusty, and plant breeding and pre-breeding, John Derera, integrated breeding research services by Sharifah Alwee, who's on the call and leading breeding resources at this time, and strategy, delivery and scaling by Ian Barker. The initiatives at this time map to these departments, and we'll be bringing these relationships closer and closer. Just to say, I've asked the senior directors to confirm the leadership of the initiatives. In most cases, they will be confirming the current leads of each of the initiatives. So for breeding resources, for example, we are continuing to go forward with Younghua in the lead and with Sharifah as her co-lead. But at the same time, Sharifah is leading the department that breeding resources maps to. So please expect the same faces in terms of leadership. I'll also say a few words with respect to excellence in breeding and how that fits in a minute, just so everybody understands. So here we go, into the slide, thank you. You prompted me to move into the EIB transition. So we have a number of transitions going on. So I hope I've communicated that the big picture is that we're transitioning from programs and projects into these departments as our key organizing principle. So for excellence in breeding, the most important thing, excellence in breeding has led us in terms of thought leadership, and also in terms of providing the range of skills and capacities that we really need to take genetic innovation into the future. They're the key to our modernization and augmenting capacities across CGIAR. So we're going to have a transition period. Excellence in Breeding platform officially closed as a CGIAR cross-cutting platform at the end of last year, but continues to function with support from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and continues many of its current activities. And these will gradually transition into the existing initiatives that split between breeding resources and accelerated breeding, and into the new structures. Just like to say, we're taking that transition slowly and steadily. So we want to make sure that all of the skills, the people, the talent are retained. Those of you on the call who are in excellence in breeding, make sure that you land in good places with secure futures and with a meaningful contribution to the overall work. So please be assured we're taking this transition step by step. Excellence in Breeding will continue over the coming year, and conversations will happen at the appropriate pace as the senior directors and Michael Quinn work together to map out a future for all of the capacities and people. The senior directors started in September. They're slowly revving up to full time. So September up until the end of the year is a transition period for them as well, as they move from being part-time into full-time in their new roles. The critical thing is we'll have a retreat next week, and following up from that, we'll be able to provide everyone with much greater communications and clarity on how the different departments will work, how things will coordinate, and what the key priorities are for 2023. So just to watch the space, as we will do town halls in December in Eastern Hemisphere and Western Hemisphere time zones, and that'll be a chance to meet those senior directors as a group. The next issue is around the Excellence in Breeding budget for 2023. What we are proposing is for the 2023 year to keep 2 out of 6 of the GI initiatives outside of the pooled funded space. So those 2 are breeding resources and genome editing. Now, for genome editing, the reason is to do with the discomfort of European funders around their money being used for something which is outside of a European regulatory space. For breeding resources, it's somewhat different. So we would like to keep breeding resources in a separate funding mechanism just for this 1 year for 2 reasons. Well, there are a few more reasons, but essentially the one reason is to absolutely clarify this transition from excellence in breeding into the new initiatives and into the new operational structure. And then the other part of it is that we had a set of complexities last year, this year, the current financial year, 2022, in making sure that the set of crop breeding programs across the centres were budgeted up to the amount that they needed for business continuity. So this year it is better for us to make sure that that is coming through a fully funded, accelerated breeding budget that can allow for the crop breeding programs to meet their needs, and then we keep breeding resources separate, delivering very specifically the set of services and functions. So just to say, we're in conversation, particularly with the Gates Foundation around that, and we'll make sure that everyone's fully informed. Again, we do expect to fund up to the same levels as 2022. So we're not looking at cuts here, we're rather looking at a reorganization of the funding. Okay, next, the Crops to End Hunger grants. I expect we'll hear more on this from those who are leading it, but at the moment, there will be the set of grants coming through GIZ. They will be announcing the outcomes from all of those competitive processes shortly. And again, these are delivering key parts of the modernization agenda. So we're looking at very close articulation and close mapping with breeding resources. And then the final thing I want to mention is the Genetic Innovation Advisory Group. This is a group that has just started up. Our funders in particular are very keen to be actively involved, not in a formal oversight manner, but rather in an active, the words that they've been using has been cheerleaders and challengers of our work in genetic innovation. So we've set up a group that will be meeting once a month. For anyone on the call, at some point, you will probably be asked to join one of these meetings to talk about your work and to hear feedback from the GI advisory group. So it started off as 6 funder members, and as we go into the last months of this year, we'll be inviting 6 additional members who will be experts in GI from our region, so that we get a strong set of voices from all over the world, from our NARES partners and private sector and academic research collaborators across our regions. So that's actually a very exciting space, and it's really good to have this interactive way of working. What we do ask for the initiatives is that they use this advisory function and rather than setting up independent advisory functions. So please do rally round and use the advisory group. I hope I haven't used up too much time. I'll stop there. Obviously, I'll stay on for the rest of the meeting and happy to field any questions that come my way. Back to you, Yanghua. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. So I'll continue right into the next session. Please let me know if anything looks amiss with the slides. But just real brief, why do we have a breeding resources initiative? Essentially, it's about providing institutionalized services for operations. And the reason we want to put some special, specific attention to this is to enable data-driven breeding using whatever available technological advances there are. But as we do that, we want to avoid duplication, and facilitate interconnected operations. And all of this so that we make sure to use the funding dollars that we have for greater impact and for greater efficiency. So hopefully you've seen some version of this slide before. There are 5 work packages in breeding resources, and they're sort of narratively, they're organized sort of like in a top to bottom. The first one is about strategizing for what and how to make our investments. So simulation and forecasting for where our dollars should go. The second to fourth work packages are about the services themselves. So the number 2 is about services like genotyping, data analytics, trialing, services related to trialing and nursery. Number 3 is about services related to continuous improvement of operations. 4 is all about data management and data management user support. And then number 5 is focused on facilitating the uptake of these services throughout the CGIAR network that we serve. And the work package leads are on the right. And let me just jump to the next slide. So in 2022, here are some of the key things that we've been working on in this extremely chaotic year. But in this year, we've been able to develop what we're calling a breeding process model, which can act as sort of like a map for shared conversations between breeding programs and also between initiatives for aligning our joint plans and roadmaps. We have what we're calling process teams, which have gotten going. And these are teams that drive the harmonization of SOPs for the scaling of best practices in breeding operations. One of our key deliverables is in data management. And one one achievement there is the enterprise breeding system is now deployed in production at 3 centers with over 500 registered users in 3 crops. We have launched a breeding data governance network, which would be very important for enabling CGIAR networks. Key to having such a network is the sharing of data as well as germplasm, right? We have identified regional change leads, what we're calling change leads, and these are roles to help coordinate demand and capacity assessments for services to offer. And finally, we are developing right now change management and capacity development training plans that we will start circulating for feedback soon. Before I hand off to Sharifah, I want to just spend a moment talking about process teams, because if you've been intersecting with us for a little bit in the past year, you've probably heard us talk a lot about them. And I want to explain a little bit why we focus so much on trying to launch these process teams. And the reason is that breeding in CGIAR networks is meant to be a collaborative multi-institution partnership. And for quality data, germplasm, and products, we need interconnected operations between these partners that follow harmonized SOPs. Like essentially, a breeding process is you input data in germplasm for us from multiple, because we're a multilateral networked group. We have data in germplasm coming from multiple centers and operations and stations that all feed into breeding processes, which of course then produce more data, more germplasm, and more products, again, at these different centers and institutions. And what keeps us together is shared processes. Shared processes are the key delivery mechanism for collaborative breeding partnerships. So this is why we're focusing so much on this. On what might seem like a very dry and esoteric topic. So I wanted to briefly set that up a little bit because we will probably bring this up a lot in our future interactions and meetings. I will pass it to you, Sharifah. Let me know when you need me to go forward.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Yanghwa, and thanks, Sonja, as well, for giving us an overview of where we are. Now, for the rest of the slides, I'll take you from the initiative and how are we transitioning and our plans for next year. So while we are busy putting together the services and teams, we have also been working on the transition of the initiative into the department. And in this case, it's the Integrated Breeding Research Services. After much iteration, we agree on the establishment of these 4 units, namely the Global Services, Operation Enhancement, Breeding IT, and last but not least, a unit that is responsible for capacity building. Although the structure of the department is yet to be finalized, these units will allow us to deliver our purpose, which is to drive breeding networks' impact with best-in-class tools, technologies, and services. We hope the transition will be complete and the departments are put in place by at least January 2023, if not sooner. Next slide, please. Okay, Sonja had shown a better slide, but just want to reiterate that within the GI, this would be where the Integrated Breeding Research Services will be. And as you can see, there are some changes that we made to the different units under the department. And next, Yanghwa. So a bit more detail on how the work packages of the breeding resources fit into the integrated breeding and research services. The Global Services Unit will house the 3 main services, namely the trialing and nursery services, lab services, which include genotyping and nutritional analysis, and breeding analytics. On top of these, we have also put together data governance network that will ensure quality data is being produced and used for breeding decisions. Next is Operation Enhancement. Basically, this is a unit where its function is to support the global services in standardizing and harmonizing the processes. They will ensure SOPs and continuous improvement processes are put in place so that, and they'll also develop a more consistent way of working across the work packages and across initiatives and eventually the departments. Breeding IT, as the name implies, will work hand in hand with EBS for deployment and also support other IT needs. And basically their role is to drive effective information management so that we can accelerate the network breeding impact. And finally, to ensure the department grow and continue to support the needs of breeding and research in general, we will be putting together an organized, centralized and cost-effective capacity building function that will support CGIAR's breeding network. We believe having a capacity development plan to help create a shared common framework, as mentioned by Yang Hua just now, standards and path towards personal and institutional improvement is essential towards building an integrated system of working in GI. The numbers that you see below are actually the work packages and how they fit. So for example, the services set up by work packages 245 will be housed in the global services. And in the capacity building, you see the same number. That is because we are consolidating all the capacity building needs within those work packages under this unit. So that way we do not duplicate what each other is doing. And that is the hope as well as we work across the department as well. So as you can see here, all the work packages are accounted for, so no one is left behind. We aim to work in a very cohesive way to deliver the services, not only technically, but also through effective change management strategy and operational excellence. I think this is very much in line with the original aim of the Breeding Resources Initiative. Next slide.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Oh, okay. As we want the transition to happen relatively fast, so that we can be sure that there is no disruption in the way we work and also the support that we can provide it to the breeders and centers, we have put together an interim management team. As you can see, some of the existing work package leads of breeding resources are here, and while others new names, you might know them or not, but they are brought in because of their expertise in those areas. Again, I just want to iterate, I think Sonja mentioned this as well. What are the difference? You may still be asking what are the difference between the initiative and the department. Actually, if you want a simple answer, I would say the department is the engine that will drive the initiative. So for a service department like integrated breeding research and research services, I think it's very important for us to quickly put together this engine, even if it's managed by an interim team, so that we can create an efficient system of working from the very beginning to allow for effective deliveries of the services. Next slide. Okay, so what can you expect from us in 2023? As mentioned earlier, we really want to go transition into integrated breeding and research services, and we hope this could happen as early as January or even earlier maybe, so that with all the units fully functional, even if it's at interim basis. Next year as well, all the shared services will be fully available through a new resourcing model. This is mostly for the shared services that are provided through a coordination model, which includes genotyping and nutritional analysis at the moment. So what does this new resourcing model means? It means that the services will be provided according to allocations that are made based on pipeline sizes. So this has been agreed upon with John, Senior Director for Breeding, and also some members of ABI. I think this new resourcing model will allow us to restructure the actual service delivery process to make it more cost-effective and efficient, especially when we combine it with the use of service forecasting and request tools that we are also developing. As the Yang Hua mentioned a little bit about the process teams, actually quite a bit. So next year we have started building these teams, but next year we want them to be fully operational. And these are basically, so currently we have 3 process teams under breeding resources. We have got another one that is working with ABI. So essentially there are 4, but for breeding resources, that's 3. They are responsible for trialing and nursery processes, lab services processes, and breeding analytics processes. Essentially, they are basically these teams are our men and women, I would say, on the ground that will provide a robust, cross-functional and cross-crop decision-making platform through a very structured way of working, so that we can be sure the service are delivered through an industry standard management methodology. We are piloting the system of working with rice in Erie, Africa Rice in Syed, and cassava in Syed and IITA. Teams are also being formed in Icarda and Simit, Simit wheat, I believe, as we speak. I think through this team, we want to create a feedback mechanism so that we can continuously improve on how the services will be delivered. We have also been quite busy putting together recommendations to the various teams. They are writing, they are at the moment writing the CTH full proposal, so that to be sure that we can get alignment in the implementation, no duplications, essentially better organized and management of resources. I think by working we could come in and provide those kind of services as well, to be sure, again, no duplications between the centers for many of the improvements that are being asked for. And finally, Sonja talks about the new funding model for us next year. But the workings are still being, the details are still being figured out, so stay tuned. Next slide, please. So obviously, excellent and effective research support cannot exist just by us, breeding resources team, going around alone. We need to lean on each other. All the initiatives, all the departments eventually in GI will need to work with each other to implement this together, and the breeding resource team will be there to help and support everyone within GI in our effort to move forward. So how do you get connected? If you are still not yet connected, you can connect through the work package leads. I think the names are there. Everyone should, I think by now, knows them. The process stewards at the centers, the work package leads could also introduce you to them, and a lot of centers know already who are these people. The change leaders in the region, and IBRS function leads, and me. Send me an email. We will talk to everyone that wants to talk to us. Last slide. So finally, on behalf of my team, before I hand over the session, I would like to say thank you to everyone who has joined this short town hall. Hopefully this session has provided a bit more clarity on who and what we are, what we have done, what we hope to do together with you in the coming years. We look forward to work with all of you in this journey, and we are here to partner with you to deliver breeding operation services efficiently and effectively. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to stop share.
Yep.
And we're going to move right along and invite John to share his slides. Are you there, John?
Yes, Yangwa, thank you so much. I don't have slides. I'll just share a few points. Yeah. Thank you so much for presenting the IBRIs to us this afternoon. I'm happy to be part of the conversation. This is quite encouraging and inspiring to see that we are developing a new kind of organization that embraces collaboration and continuous improvement at the core of all aspects that we are involved in. Speaking from a breeding perspective, I can say that we are indeed looking forward to get professional services and shared services being provided by IBRIs. That will indeed enable us, GI, as an organization to achieve operational excellence, which will guide and make it easier for us and faster to develop products as breeders work in the fields and move these products from the breeders' plots through partners to the smallholder farmers' fields. In the process, we can maximize smallholder value. And I think that is the sweet spot. It lies in us maximizing smallholder growers' value out of the product that we develop. What is very important about this IBRIs in providing professional services and shared services is that it enables breeders to focus more in making their breeding pipelines to be more impactful, better focused towards delivering that kind of product that the smallholders are yearning for, that kind of product that speaks to climate change crisis. But most importantly, the organizational effectiveness will also improve in the process. So I think that's what I read out of this. And to make sure that we function effectively as a team and as a collective, we, the management of breeding and pre-breeding, we work very closely with IBRIs. We meet every week to discuss and align our activities in making sure that we are moving in the same direction, we close the gaps and identify wherever there is something missing or not. So I look forward to seeing IBRI's implementation in 2023, as shown here, and I'm sure all breeders we are going to enjoy the fruits of this as we move forward. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for taking part in this great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, John, very much. Okay, so amazingly, we are on time, right at the 40 minutes. So we have actually 10 minutes for anyone who would like to pose a question. Please also, put your questions in the chat. If we don't get to yours in the next 10 minutes, we're collecting all these questions and we'll circulate an FAQ or address them in a follow-up meeting. So please raise your hand if you would like, or we can start with questions that are already in the chat. Okay. I'm gonna, while we're getting going, I'm gonna, let's see. We have a question from Gary in the chat. One of the most serious deficiencies of CG breeding is the level of mechanization of field phenotyping. The most basic steps in increasing breeding pipeline throughput require mechanization of plot planting and harvesting. How much of a priority is this for BR? I'll leave that for you, Sharifah, maybe?
Yeah, sure. Gary, yes, and I think we spoke about this as well. Within BR, we are putting together, number one, when we were reviewing the CTH proposals, we are consolidating the needs for mechanization and also infrastructure needs and so on. So the idea is to have this consolidated and managed by a team within the operation enhancement section that I showed. And we also want to standardize basically the type of mechanization that is being done and harmonize it basically so that we can coordinate the maintenance, the repairs, and all those needs, because I think through consolidation, we could, it's very cost effective as well. So we are in the works of doing that. Thanks.
Okay. Sonja, I'm going to put you on the spot with one here. Thank you very much, Sonja, for the information on the changes that are currently taking place. Due to the changes in the funding for BRI, what will happen to those mapped to the initiative as well as operational funding in the transition period?
Great. Thank you for the question. So I'm assuming that those mapped to the initiative means those members of staff. So there are two parts to this. So one part of it is that we will be continuing the functions of breeding resources, but very much focusing that on the delivery of those tools and services that are within the initiative, are shaping the CGIAR strategy. So we're very much going to focus on those rather than any kind of additional or duplicative or competing sets of capacities and services. So that's quite important. So those staff who are delivering on the initiative will continue to be supported. The other part of the answer is that I think for some staff have been funded through that initiative that should really have been funded through accelerated breeding. Due to the underfunding of accelerated breeding, some centres have mapped their staff onto breeding resources. So the other part of the answer is that by increasing the funding to accelerated breeding this year, we are hoping that we now get more appropriate mapping of staff to the correct initiative. Thanks. Back to you, Yanghua.
Thank you very much, Sonja. Okay, I'm going to pick one about what is a gene bank role in phenotyping and genotyping of germplasm to work together with breeding. I'll take one piece of that. I think maybe you should probably ask this question again in the ABI town hall. That's another thing. But the biggest link between the gene banks and BR right now is in data management. So we are actively coordinating to make sure that to make sure that first of all that we are all going to be using the same database for storing genotyping data. That's one point of alignment that we've identified. And another is that there's a lot of shared interest in some of the capabilities like bioinformatics, marker development, and analytics. I think that where we, instead of having our own efforts, it makes a lot of sense to combine. So that is where our main touch point is there. Okay, some new questions coming in. Maybe a question about precision phenotyping using digital tools and advanced technologies. I guess the question is, what are we doing there? Sharifah, do you want to take that one?
Can you repeat again which one? I was looking at some other questions. Okay, sorry.
There was one called.
There's so many here.
It's I think it's saying that very few CG breeding programs have normalized precision phenotyping using digital tools and advanced technologies like that. So how much of a priority is this for BR?
That would be one of the services that we are putting together. So, but it will not be as soon as, I would say it will not be like early 2023, because we are still mapping the needs and also kind of like scoping the type of service that needs to be provided. So we are basically designing the service at the moment now. So we are talking to the breeders and researchers at the moment, assessing the needs and so on, and then eventually from those data we will design the service. So it will come on board next year, but not early part of the year, I would say. Thanks. Yeah.
And I'm gonna go to a question from Moira. So she's asking specifically, about sister programs like ILSI. The USAID Innovation Lab for Crop Improvement and Breeding Insight. How will those groups interact with what we're doing here to benefit all breeders? I'm not sure where this should go. Sonja or John, I'm thinking.
I would say John, maybe.
John, okay. John, do you want to address this one?
John, you're mute.
All right. Please repeat the question.
I'm sorry?
Hello, can you please repeat the question? Yeah.
Oh, yes. So Moira says, thank you for the update. As EIB transitions away, has there been any discussion on how sister programs or initiatives will continue to interact to benefit all breeders, specifically USAID Innovation Lab for Crop Improvement or Breeding Insight?
Okay, yeah, I think we are looking forward to continue with all the collaborations that are in place. And just like BRI, we are also working on building the organization and also looking at how we can integrate better. Like as Sonja has described, we are looking at the transition of EIB into ABI. So we are looking alongside all other collaboration projects like Soybean Innovation Lab, for example, how best are we collaborating them in the new department. So that's work in progress, but continuity is there, also be improving.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to finish with one more, and I'm going to give this one to Sharifah. What is the rationale for maintaining ABI as a distinct entity from BR?
Okay, no, I think as John mentioned, by having two separate teams, we are the breeders within ABI can be very focused in the science, delivering the science, doing the breeding work, leaving logistics of how to get those work done, those data out to breeding resources. So essentially, it's two teams working together. You can say like it's a single team, it's just that two specialization. So rather than one single team thinking about the science, thinking about how to run the trials, thinking about how to get all this genotyping work done, so we take away the headaches that you have to get those data. So what you do is design your breeding program, work with us to put it on the ground, get all the genotyping work done, and we take care of all those logistics. So that's the rationale. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So thank you very much. We're at time, and I don't think we've gotten to all the questions or comments. So we will collect everything and address them in a Q&A document. And I hope that this is the first of a series. I mean, it will be the first of a series. And hopefully the next one will be under the IBRS moniker with things fully launched. So thank you everyone again for your time, and please keep your questions coming. This is obviously, everything is a work in progress right now, and we want to make sure that what we're building here is fit for purpose and really serving what is needed. So feedback is gold right now. So please do email us with whatever advice or requests or feedback you might have.